Hello, we're here today with Mona Salti, who is the principal at Sunrise Academy in Hilliard, Ohio, the Central Ohio area. My name is Mindy Farry. I'm a PBL facilitator, and I first met Mona last year when we first did a PBL Plunge with her staff, where we just kind of throw them in as PBL students in a one-day exposure, and then we were invited to come back to do the 3-day PBL design. So welcome, Mona, and thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to just talk about some of the great success stories that we've had at our school with project-based learning, and just the opportunity to talk to you, Mindy. I mean, it's always great to connect with you.
No. So tell us about what it was like with your staff following that 3-day design workshop that we did.
Yeah, absolutely. So my staff members, a lot of them they weren't familiar with project-based learning, so they didn't have a lot of exposure. I had some staff members that had a lot of exposure and other staff members that did not. What was really exciting about the project-based learning workshop was that teachers actually left the training with tools and resources to immediately implement project-based learning in their classrooms. And they were so confident to be able to do that, which was really surprising to me because they came into the workshop with such little exposure, and it was almost like they were sold. So I was really, really appreciative of the fact that the training was so successful, and they were able to do the majority of the pre-work that they needed to be able to launch project-based learning within their classrooms.
So did you begin to see a mind shift with your teachers and their teaching practices?
Yeah, I actually saw a mind shift with both my staff members and my students. With staff members, the shift started when they started to realize that maybe the way they were teaching was not the most effective way. I would say the majority of my staff members were traditional teachers, and so they were used to being the source of information. They were the ones that were giving and conveying all the information to students, and students were the ones receiving it. And so we kind of had to show them the successes that come out of having students do more of the work and having teachers be the facilitators. So a lot of them were, some of them, they didn't really give pushback. I was really grateful for that because I think for the most part, my teachers really, really want to do what's best for kids, and they want to be the best educators they possibly can. But some of them were just nervous because they did not know how to do it any other way.
Right.
This is how they were taught when they were growing up.
We all teach the way we were taught at first because it's comfortable.
Yeah. To help progress the shift in mindset, I paired staff members who were really comfortable doing project-based learning with staff members who maybe weren't so comfortable, and they got to see it firsthand. They got to see the direct success of the staff members and students, and they slowly became believers. And then the staff members that felt really comfortable, that were feeling successful with it, were really helping those staff members that weren't. And so we kind of built in a lot of support. The other thing that we did was during our collaboration meetings, we shared our success stories, right? We talked about the things that were working really well. We talked about the things that were not working really well, because I wanted staff members to know that they're not alone. All of us share the same concerns, we share the same fears, and the only way to get through them is to really help support each other, take baby steps towards making improvements. So that was really cool because we created a little bit of like a support group for one another,
Sure.
Which was really nice. Yeah, it was really nice because I think when you're making such a shift like this, and teachers are going from doing what they only know to doing something so different, they need that support to help them feel confident in implementing it. The other thing that I noticed with my staff members, which I thought was really, really awesome, was, I'm a huge believer of staff collaboration, but I noticed in my building there really wasn't a lot of collaboration happening. Teachers were kind of in their own classrooms. Their classrooms were almost like islands, right? And with the shift to project-based learning, they started looking at content through the lens of not just their subject matter, but how it relates to other subject matters. which was so nice because they were teachers were collaborating more. So grade level teachers were constantly collaborating. They were trying to find ways to bridge the gaps between the different content areas. It was so nice to see it because it made more sense for students, right? When students are receiving content that's completely connected and bridged across content areas with all teachers, material becomes easier to understand and digest and internalize and, retain. So I was really excited I think those are the biggest shifts that I noticed with my staff members. And the shift that I noticed with my students was, at first, they were a little bit hesitant.
Like teachers were.
Yeah, just like the way teachers were.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were used to being spoon-fed, right? They were used to all of the knowledge coming to them. They didn't really have to work hard for it. And they were also used to not being engaged. They were almost content with not being engaged, right? Mm-hmm. This is what the norm was. And when teachers started making the shift, students were kind of like, oh, so I'm responsible for my own learning now? And they were so unbelievably engaged because they cared about what they were doing. That was so beautiful to see, because students were invested in their own learning because they felt they had a purpose to serve. They felt they were contributing, as opposed to just sitting down, taking knowledge, knowing that this knowledge is just, they just are using it so that they can, pass a test. They didn't understand, there was no connection between why is this knowledge important for the real world, And so now they see this connection, it's relevant to them, and they care. And guess what? Office referrals started decreasing.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, because kids were so engaged. They had no time to be bored or cause problems or, any of those things that we usually see when kids are not being challenged.
You also have kids that have those talents that are outside the academic realm that you never noticed before, never took advantage of, that all of a sudden now are the stars because I'm an artist, or I like to build, or whatever it might be that the team needed them to do. Sometimes those stars come shining through too.
Yeah, it just, this type of approach really gave opportunities for all students. It was almost like no students were left behind, and we were really able to shine and hone in on each student's strengths and weaknesses. And the cool thing is, Mindy, I don't know if you know this, but we actually started working on integrating the habits of mind with project-based learning.
I remember teachers talking about that.
Yeah. So that's been really cool because we're working on developing those really important skills that students need for the workforce and for success in life in general, not just in the workforce, but in relationships and marriages and friendships, So yeah, the shift was really phenomenal, and the investment that we saw in kids was amazing. And the amount of knowledge students acquired about students' capabilities. Teachers acquired about the students' capabilities. Like, they learned things about their students they didn't know before.
Sure.
Which helps cater to them, right?
And so your students became kind of local celebrities. They ended up in the newspaper. You want to tell me about that project and what happened with that? Because that's one of your huge success stories.
Yeah. So once project-based kind of launched and I started to see this huge shift in the classroom and teachers started sharing what they were doing with other teachers, there was one piece that was really missing, and that was the opportunity for students to get exposure to organizations and adults and careers, things like that. So I thought it would be such a wonderful opportunity to just share with the community some of the great things that Sunrise Academy is doing, and let them know that we are invested in giving back to our community. So the biggest ask that we had in that newspaper was, you know, we wanted to reach out to the public and let them know that we need partnerships in helping our students really come up with the driving questions and the elements that are relevant to their projects. And so we had people reach out to us. So after that article went out, we had Congresswoman from Hilliard reached out to us, and she wanted our middle schoolers to help her with, you know, something that she had promised the community before she came on board. And it was to develop, I forget exactly the details of her project, but she wanted our students to help her develop these communities, these neighborhood communities that can kind of approve any of these big projects that are coming into the neighborhood. You know? Yeah, and so she wanted our students to help with the launch of that, to help her with the details, to do the research, and it was really, really awesome. We hadn't started that project yet because we had our closure happened, so that we kind of put the brakes on that, but I'm wondering, you know, how can we pick up where we left off?
Sure.
The other thing that the Columbus Dispatch kind of captured was some of the projects that were happening in our school. You know, we had grade level projects that were happening, and the second and third graders they did a project called Behind the Picket Fence. And so Sunrise Academy is a school, and you know, and it's got a picket fence surrounding, you know, the school, so it's kind of closed off to the community. And the students started to wonder, I wonder what the people outside think about us. You know, we're closed off, and a lot of people don't really know a lot about Sunrise Academy. They might know we're an Islamic school, but they might not know a lot about Islam or what Muslims are. And so they wanted to interview people in the community, find out what their misconceptions may be about Islam or Sunrise Academy, and then they wanted to try to educate them on what's really happening. It was so beautiful, Mindy. You should have saw our second and third graders researching and highlighting and interviewing each other. It was fantastic.
It doesn't get more authentic than that.
Oh my goodness.
You know,
yes.
Educating a community who might not be aware of the very people that are in their community, and
exactly
what our differences are, but what our similarities are too.
Exactly. And it was so beautiful to hear the kids talk about it and the skills that they developed. Like they had to pretend to be interviewers, you know, and what are some important questions that we want to ask? You know, why is this question important? You know, what are we trying to get out of this? You know, and so when they were researching, they were really like looking for the best forms of questions. They had to practice those questions with one another. So that was one part of their project, you know. But it was such a great learning experience. Students were so excited. I had families email me, and they were talking about how their kids were coming home, talking about what they were learning because it meant something to them.
Oh, and imagine what they learned about their own culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you might not otherwise really figure out as a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old.
Absolutely. So one of our visions, our mission at Sunrise Academy, one part of it is to really strengthen our students' Muslim American identity, right? So this project kind of helped advance that, because in order to strengthen someone's identity, you have to be proud of your identity, and you have to be able to talk to others about who you are confidently.
Right.
And so our second and third graders were practicing just that. You know, having these conversations with people who may not be familiar with their culture or their religion, and really kind of trying to bridge that gap, which I think is so beautiful.
That's perfect. So How about, Mona, this was your first year doing this. How about your struggles as a school leader? What kinds of things did you go through?
Oh my goodness, Mindy. I almost think that I'm a very optimistic person, and I'm a very, when I believe in something, I just want to go full head on, and I want to dive right into it, and I want to do everything that we can to be successful in this thing. And the PBL was kind of my thing this year, and I believe in it so much. But before I became principal, as an educator, I wasn't familiar with project-based learning. I did a lot of the snippets that project-based learning discusses. I did it within my classroom, but I didn't have the full picture of project-based learning, right? I just understood what good teaching is, and I knew project-based learning was good teaching. So I didn't have experience as a teacher. And that's kind of scary, because as a principal, you're trying to support your staff members in this process, but you don't have a lot of experience in it. So how do you support them? You know, because if you're not confident in giving the feedback that they need, or modeling or coaching, then you may get pushback, and you know, they may drive the entire concept out of your school. And that's a scary thought when you believe in something so much. That was my struggle. My struggle was building my own confidence, learning about it inside and out so I can support my teachers, and really reaching out to people that I think were great supports, was a great support system for me. You know, people who I knew were very well versed in project-based learning. They gave me a lot of support in how I can support my staff.
And I think your enthusiasm just would drive just about anything in your building, because they do trust you and they believe in you.
Yeah.
But it also has that double-edged sword of, am I going too fast because I'm so excited about this, when other people sometimes aren't as excited as I am. And then, you know, sometimes you have to back yourself off and say, okay, small steps, let's get everybody on board before the train takes off on us.
And I had to remind myself of that, and I think the one thing I kept conveying to my staff members was, it's okay to fail. It's okay to fall. Just dust yourself off, get right back up and try it again. The most important thing is just reflecting on what worked and what did not work, so that you're able to do a better job the next time you try. And so when I went into classes and I saw things that were going really well, I would videotape them, share them with other staff members. When things were not going really well, I would really focus in on the things that did go well, but then I would also tell them it's okay that it was not perfect. What can we do differently next time? And
just
so
with our kids.
Exactly. And I think it developed a level of trust with my staff members, because they knew that it was okay to make mistakes, right? They knew that it was okay not to have it right. They knew that what I was most concerned about was that they were not going to give up on the process. That was the most important thing to me. And Mindy, also, I had an amazing leadership team alongside me. I had my directors who were really helping me support teachers as well. So they did a fantastic job. And my directors are master level teachers. So when there were things that I wasn't 100% sure with, I would consult them, and then vice versa. So we kind of supported each other. We reached out to people in the community that we felt were strong with project-based learning, and we provided as much support as we could. And we told them we don't have all the answers. I mean, we let them know we didn't have all the answers. And we let them know that we were going through this together, you know? But the one thing that we all aligned on, and the one thing we agreed with, was the fact that we truly believe that this is the best approach and the best step moving forward to advance our school and to really help our kids ensure that they're ready for college and careers.
That comes close to answering my last question I always ask people is, so if you met another teacher or another educator and they said, Mona, why PBL? What would your answer be?
You know, as educators, our number one priority is to make sure that we prepare students for colleges and careers. And I feel as an education system, we were not doing that well, because we were missing important components. We were missing the skills that students need to really be successful in the workforce. We were missing, we weren't challenging our kids enough. They didn't care about their learning. It wasn't relevant to them. They weren't interested. They weren't engaged enough. And this entire approach kind of shifts gears completely. Students are now invested, they're engaged, they take ownership in their own learning. They're building on skills that organizations want when they hire, you know, people that come out of college. We're building on skills that, you know, universities are looking for. So you know, like, why project-based learning, you know, to me, that was a no-brainer. I never questioned whether it was the right approach. I just questioned whether I could help my school move in that direction. Really, that was the thing I struggled with, was I the right person that could do this when I'm not completely confident in my ability to be able to support teachers? But just like teachers had to overcome their fears, I had to overcome my fears because I knew it was what was best for me.